I'm Helen Meany, and I'm speaking to you on Gadigal land in Sydney's inner west, where I live and work. And this is my book, Every Day is Gertie Day, which was released in October 2021 on Brio Books. And this is me reading from the first chapter. It began with the death house on Regency Street. I read about it the same place as you probably did, on the news scroll. A woman's badly decomposed body had been found in her own home. That was bad enough. That she was old hadn't been missed, and no one could tell exactly how long she'd been there made it worse. And yes, it is that perennial trope, a story that starts with a woman's dead body, despite being, in this case, true. A resident of the street was interviewed by a reporter. He claimed, having lived there for 15 years, that he'd never ever seen her. He said he'd assumed the house was abandoned, maybe a squat. And he'd occasionally pick up sodden piles of tradies' flyers and Food World catalogues from the front porch to keep the street looking nice. He said he'd walked his kids past the house to school every day for years. Another neighbour commented from behind her screen door and helpfully provided the mandatory soundbite about being shocked that this had happened in her own street. Then there was the house itself, bordered in blue and white police tape. A modest Victorian workers' cottage with a vine-covered iron roof and unfashionably large tree fern dominating the small front yard. Run down, but not yet completely derelict. I'd certainly lived in rentals that looked worse. A police spokesman looked straight into the camera and implored viewers to keep in touch with elderly relatives and make a special effort to say hello to any neighbours we might accidentally encounter while putting out the garbage. How this might have prevented what had happened, he didn't say. It was nothing new, of course. We'd heard it all before, and the same questions were asked. Public soul-searching and hand-wringing, and local politicians put on the spot. At least one commentator asked if it was time to consider a minister for loneliness, like they once had in the UK. For the next week or so, everyone on the news scroll had an opinion. Sadness turned to outrage, and outrage to blame. If it hadn't been the old woman dying alone and forgotten, it would have been schoolboys on trains, the packaging on cheese, or people asking where all the birds have gone. What was it that upset people? That one day it might be them? Or just good old-fashioned guilt? The dead woman was finally identified as friendless octogenarian Gertrude Thrift. The name cracked me up the first time I heard it. We'd been discussing what to call a pet cabbage moth. Mags had trapped it in a jar, having never seen anything like it before. No one gets called Gertrude anymore, I suggested. Both she and my husband Ben shot it down. The moth didn't survive long anyway, and we hardly saw any other bugs after that. Updates on the Thrift story revealed a local real estate agent had discovered her body, which didn't surprise me one bit. It had inquiries about the house and was trying to track down the owner. The guy seemed at pains to make sure everyone understood he'd tried every other avenue before forcing that window. Aside from tour guide, the public education and engagement officer role also included shifts in Cafe Gertie and the museum gift shop. I think that's what clinched the job for me, my unique skill set, museum, food and retail experience. My unaltered ears had put me in the minority among the other candidates on the day of the interview, and I'd wondered at that point if I'd wasted my time. I now know, of course, that the opposite had been true. Unaltered ears gave me an advantage. There were 4 of us hired. Me, the 2 Catherines, one under 30, one over 50, but otherwise virtually indistinguishable. And the tall, thin and bald museum operations manager, call me Giacomo. A small team with not a pointed ear among us. Training went for a week and included an excursion to the State Heritage Storage Facility on the edge of the city. We were shown around by one of the archivists, a chatty woman called Shane, who revelled in the opportunity to talk about the strange collection of stuff she spent her days with. She led us through vast climate-controlled storage vaults. Rows of metal shelves were stacked with tagged artefacts from historic houses, old boots, chamber pots, colonial tools and kitchen implements sitting among pale blue archive boxes with the State Heritage logo printed on the side. Shane showed us a row of 5 boxes containing thrift house ephemera, stuff too random to have found its way into the museum, but retained for future generations regardless. A glimpse at the contents of one box revealed yellowing bills, letters, cards and photos, all brittle with age and insect damage. In another, women's magazines from the 1940s or 1950s. I noticed the cover of one had been defaced, the model's facial features traced over in pencil, altered and exaggerated, giving the appearance of some sort of mid-century mutant. I only glimpsed it for a second before Shane closed that box and moved on to the next. "Wait," I wanted to say to her. "What is that?" But I didn't.